We can't go outside, we've got to stay in. If together we fight, then this thing will win. So grab yourself a beer and grab yourself some grub and sit down with us at the virtual pub.
Boom. Welcome back, everybody. Today we have our weekly, I guess, a horticulture show. It's like gardening with my good friend Rossi. He's an absolute hero. He had a show last week, which went down an absolute storm. And so this is our next segment in it. Rossi is a bit of a legend, actually. He's a fully trained and amazing chef. He's chefed all around Torbay. I didn't realise he was such a green-fingered chap. It's amazing. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring Rossi in, and he can give us a bit of an update. I think because we've got a bit of a lag between myself and him, there's a bit of an issue with connectivity. So what I'll probably do is I'm probably going to introduce him and then let him do a bit of a recap where he's been from what he did from last week, where he's at, what he's doing today's show, and he's been backstage. He's shown me some growth in terms of the stuff he's been growing, stuff that he actually planted last week, and it's insane how much growth. Look at that! I've got my wide-angle lens attached to my headphones. How useful! Right, so without further ado, please welcome Rossi. Hello, mate.
Well, howdy. How's it going?
Yeah, good. Sun shining again. I guess all this sunshine's really, really, really helped with the growth, right?
Yeah, this time of year is massive for the amount of growth the plants can put on really quickly, and it's been super dry, which keeps the slugs off as well.
That's a really good point. I didn't even think about that. Wow.
Yeah, not a drop of rain so far.
Rossi, because of the delay, I'm going to let you just recap and go over everything and crack on with the show. I'm going to be here in the background answering some questions or summoning questions. But anything you need me to do, I'm here waiting for you. Cheers, man. Have a great show.
Perfect. Okay, great. So same as last week. Any comments, because of the lag, we can't do it kind of. So I will answer any comments that come up after we've done the show. So yeah, if you didn't see last week's, pretty straightforward. What we're talking about is just growing crops super fast. So you're going to have something in the way of a harvest in 7 to 10 days. So obviously we're on day 7 from the stuff we did last week. So we're going to recap a little bit of what we've done. So the first thing we did was garlic. We've actually put on heaps of growth. Sorry, the light is so bad. I'll try and fix that. But yeah, we've got masses of growth from this garlic here. So that'll be ready to plant out next week. You can plant this out now, but I'm going to leave it a week. Just see, because some of them, they've got this funny little, it's like a little sheath on it. So the ones that are really tall have broken through their little membrane, but there's a couple here that haven't quite yet. So I'm going to wait for that for those two, and I'll plant them all out in one. I don't know where, but I'll find a spot. Okay. So one of the things we did last week was the sprouts in the protein shaker. Now, these have just gone wild because the temperature's a little bit warmer. So even just that sort of couple of degrees warmer every day has really produced like masses of growth. So they're all a bit compact, but if you spread them out, you could add a few carrots and onions in there. That's, pretty much a vegetable stir fry for 4 with some noodles or some rice or whatever. But that is, it's quite a lot of growth. That is still living. It's starting to grow little leaves now and stuff. But that's a great big harvest. Now about on the 3-week point, about 3 weeks ago, I planted like a mixed. It was a Belfast thing, about 1 foot by 2 foot. So I just threw a load of radish seeds in there, and I threw a load of pea shoots in there. It's this whole idea of polyculture. Polyculture just means growing plants in kind of companion planting or growing them in the same place. So you can grow 2 plants with different kinds of properties in the same bed or in the same pot. So usually you'll do something tall and something flat, or something that's slow maturing versus something fast maturing. So I did this big bowl. So with radishes, which are a really fast crop, about 2 months, you're going to have a crop of radishes. And I did that with pea shoots as well, because that's another kind of maybe 10, 14 days harvest. So to make room for the radishes, I thought I was going to have to like pull some more out and have this like mini harvest off them. But turns out I had enough space and they didn't. So they produced these little guys. So they're kind of tiny little baby radishes, if you can see. So they've still got the little boom on there. But I thought I was going to pull out loads of these. I didn't have to. So we're going to put these on our growing pile. No, pea shoots went off basically. So here we go. So really, you've got this huge mound. So to be fair, you know, you could be harvesting this with a bit of a rotation, kind of once a week, just on your. You know, the pea shoots are kind of a secondary harvest because what I was planting was radishes. I just used the space in between to use that available space in a small garden to then take a second crop from it. So that, you know, considering that's a really big handful, I'm quite happy with that. So if you did plant along, I know a lot of people did because they messaged me and stuff about the things last week we did in the little soy milk cartons, like the lentil sprouts and that. They're putting on some growth. I said 10 days, but realistically, you know, this is day 7. They're starting to sprout really well. So in 10 days, you will be able to take a little harvest on it, or you could leave it a bit longer and chop them at a larger size, so you're just getting a greater yield. So they've done really well. Pea shoots are happening. You have got growth there. It's not masses yet, but you know it will be. And at the 14-day mark, they're going to be, you know, not quite as big as that, but you're still going to get a really worthwhile salad crop from that. And it's just packed with protein. Yeah, it's packed with nutrients. It's living food, and that's what the name of the game is. No one sprayed it. It's completely organic. So who doesn't want to eat that? We did these mung beans as well. So not as much growth. There's some growth here. You know, it's one I've never really done before, but it's a long game thing. Let's see. It was an experiment. I'm going to take a harvest out of that. That'll still produce food. Now, to add to this kind of rotational harvest, these were planted. These were at the last show 10 days. These are the lentils. So I've got a couple of trays of these. Some ones here as well. So I actually chopped a bit of these off. I'll try and just find the light. The light's being a bit of a pig today. So yeah, let's bring that in. So you can see I've already chopped a bit off. So this is a big one with small scale gardening as well, the idea of cut and come again crops. So I chopped these quite high, but a lot of them have already started to resprout. So this is, you know, this is our master crop. So knowing that now, this cut and come again, because pea shoots are cut and come again, but I wanted the space, so I took them all the way down. So with these, I'm going to chop them all again, and then we've got this huge kind of bumper harvest of lentils, pea shoots, and some of the bean sprouts. So it's all legumes. Legumes generally are one of the best forms of plant-based protein you can get. You know, it's not necessarily a complete protein, but if you mix that with some brown rice, some quinoa, you know, the amino acid profile for that is, it's as complete as, you know, a chicken breast or whatever, you know, you want, your kind of meat equivalent, but it's purely plant-based, which is the name of the game, really. It's, you know, which is the main thing, is it's sustainable and it's just packed with enzymes and packed with like living nutrients. So this will probably be, you know, I'm in a household of this 5 of us. So that's going to be dinner tonight with some rice, whatever other veggies are knocking around. And these ones have just chopped down. These will carry on growing. So we're going to cover a few little areas today. So one of them being pests, diseases, and disorders. So the biggest one in this climate is slugs. Another one this time of year is aphids. And there's all different ways of organically controlling that without having to spray any kind of crazy jazz on it. Now, one big sort of physical control you can do with that, if I just show you this little kale plant, there's something not quite right with it. Now, one thing we've learned, because I would say that is viral, one thing that you would do in a horticultural setting is, which we all know about now, is that you would isolate this. If you see anything that's not quite right, take it away from the rest of your crop. That's the main thing. So we're going to put that elsewhere, so it's not going to spread that virus to the rest of our veggies. because the aphids, again, they're a vector for, for viruses and disorders and stuff, and they can spread that to whatever plant they feed on as they kind of make their way across. So we've got some other stuff today. We're going to do some planting out. So we've got some mature plants that are ready, for planting out. So they're in place. I've prepared some pots for them. So the main thing with this is, at this stage, you've got these really kind of juvenile plants. So I'll just try and find some, like they're quite small. Just trying to find the right spot with the camera. Yeah, but these are realistically, with this dry weather, these are ready to plant out, and they'll put some growth on. In this climate, the problem is, if we get a bit of rain, the slugs are just going to hammer them. So I will go out tonight as soon as the best way of kind of physically controlling that is to go out when it goes dark, just with a torch, and just literally pull away any slugs and snails and just kind of launch them down the bottom of the garden, or put them in a pot and take them away from harm. Because they can, if a slug gets in or a snail gets in, they'll just decimate the whole lot. So we're going to switch spots now. Just let me have a quick slurp of my brew. I'm going to do some planting. But just quickly, because I did say we're looking at pests and diseases, one of the best ways to control things like aphids, and also bring in all that good stuff like, the predators to feed on aphids or on little flies, little insects and stuff. But like, there's a lot of different wasps and hoverflies that do that. The best way is to bring other flowers and other plants, which are going to either bring in pollinators or bring in predators. So a lot of those are things like dill, fennel, marigolds are great. I think all vegetable growers grow marigolds, where traditional gardeners generally hate them. But we grow them purely selfishly because we want them to protect our crops. So let's have a little go, and we'll go and have a look at some planting. So yeah, try not to look too much at the garden, it's a bit messy. We have a little setup here, so we've got some quite large beds, not large beds, large pots. They've already been kind of watered, and the soil pressed in quite firmly. So here as well, plants already laid out in place, ready to go. So we've got some kales here. It's got a couple of different types of kale. We've got Italian kale, and we've got a traditional kind of English style kale. We've got some red chard, which is similar to beetroot and Swiss chard, but it's a really good green that you can harvest pretty much all year round. As on top of this, what I've done is that we're just digging around the garden the other day. I found a lot of worms. So I just picked up the worms and I just buried them in these pots. And I was digging through here the other day or earlier, and the worms are still in there. So hopefully they're just going to be in there. They're just going to be improving the soil, creating, a worm is essentially just this big long gut with all this bacteria. So it's going to be adding all this beneficial soil bacteria to this soil, which is a closed ecosystem to some extent, because we're not, it's not in open ground, it's just in a pot. So what we're going to do is just try and add as many different types of organic nutrients to this. And again, about this relationship with, beneficial creatures, the worms are a big one. So hopefully if they're in here after a few days, they'll stay in here, and they're going to be working for us and getting a good feed at the same time. So just to sort of give you a bit of background, because the weather's been up and down, you don't want to be planting into dry soil. So what I've done is I've watered the soil, but now I've put more dry soil on top, which should hopefully protect a little bit against the slugs. Because it's this first few days, once they put on that growth, they're a bit bigger, they can be a bit more tolerant to it. But in this very early stage, a couple of slugs or snails could wipe this out in one night, and you're just gutted. It's just wounded. So they're going to have a little dig. So these are already pre-watered as well. So these have had a good soak beforehand. And because it's a round pot, I've kind of taken a sort of 5-pointed star sort of pattern to kind of give it the most effective growing area. Like this whole planting, what we're going to do is we're going to be harvesting leaves of this. So as you harvest the outer leaves, the stems are going to grow longer and keep them further away from the soil, which keeps them further away from the slugs. So all you're going to be harvesting from is keeping this little crown of young growth, and that's going to get further and further away from the soil and further away from the slugs and snails. So yeah, we'll just dig our little holes. I'll pull these out for a second. So just 5 quick holes. Just for the record, this is not just a giant knife. This is a Japanese planting tool. It's called hori hori. So it's a soil knife. Hori hori is an onomatopoeia word that means dig, dig, apparently. But it's just a kind of real good little hacking / digging tool. So because we've got them, you know, 2 about this size, they're quite easy to handle. Tap them out, just gently pull them out. And goes 1. Another one. Yeah, they're a bit more robust when you're handling these tiny little plug plants, or when you're, you know, kind of potting up. They're quite delicate. These are put on quite a lot of root growth, so they should settle in really well, providing we get past that first point with the slugs. So then there, the soil at the bottom has been compacted down quite well. You know, you'd think you'd want it quite loose, but actually you want it relatively firm. And then we're just going to bring the soil around there, really press them in. And by sort of tucking around that bottom stem as well, you know, you're going to be securing it so it's going to have this nice strong foundation in. And we don't really have to water this because of the slugs. We want to keep this top layer of soil as dry as possible. There's plenty of moisture in the pots they're in. There's plenty of moisture in the soil at the lower level. But I'm going to, you know, over the next sort of 4 to 5 days, I'm really going to keep my eye on this. And realistically, you should be harvesting in about, I reckon, first leaves I'll be harvesting in about 10 days, something like that. Maybe a little bit longer. You know, gardening's not an exact science. You've got to judge your own site, your own garden. And you've also got to judge everything from the weather. You know, if we get horrific amounts of rain, I might actually cut some Coke bottles or something and just chuck them over the top just to give them that extra bit of protection. But with weather like this, hopefully we're getting past this first few days, and with the additional soil they're into now, hopefully they'll take and you'll put on some real growth. So I'll try and find a spot here as well. I've got an additional pot with the same stuff in. So as I said, there's a English kale and there's some Italian strapleaf kale, which is in the supermarkets. It'll be called Cavallo Nero, and it's just I think in America they call it dinosaur kale, or it's one of the names they use for it. Just trying to find a good spot now. I've got these little guys as well. So this is red chard. So red chard is, I think it was bred from a plant called sea beet, which is a little coastal plant. We actually foraged some the other day. It was good fun. It grows all around the bay. But the same thing. Those bigger pots, because they are larger, we've done 5. These we're just going to do 3. If you get a bit of overcrowding, just pull the plant out. But with that close spacing, you know, if it gets a bit crowded, pull it out. But you might, as I say, with the problem with slugs, you might hit a bit of slug damage, in which case, you know, if you've got more plants on the go, you can just throw them in and maybe just replace that, fill that little gap. So this is to sort of just say this is just normal multi-purpose compost from any garden centre, the cheap stuff. You know, if you want to buy organic, you know, and your budget allows for that, that's cool. I just, you know, I will just use what's available, and I think that's the main thing with the situation we're in now, is just using what's available. Come on. I guess you can feel, I can feel down the bottom that the soil's quite compact and the stuff on top's quite loose. So we'll just firm those in, and we should get some nice growth off that. Now, I prefer growing in pots generally, just because it's easier. I mean, there's more watering involved, but there's a lot less weeding. If you're growing in open ground, the rules are slightly different. But having a few pots at the back door, especially when you're first starting out, it's just a lot more controllable. So the last one we're really going to go to is, because we've got, you know, a lot of our stuff already going out, we're going to look at doing some second sowings. Now, because we've got our main crops out, we're just going to grow enough to essentially do some maintenance. So, you know, just so if you have gaps coming up, you might need, you know, so we're only going to plant like, you know, 2 or 3 of something, or maybe a little row of 5, which will be enough to kind of keep us going. And it means you're going to have this constant supply of greens over the summer, which is the main thing. Now, a real bummer for me is that before the beginning of this growing season, I had this huge box of older seeds, you know, some like 4 or 5 years old. So I actually took it to a charity shop, not knowing that it was going to be so difficult to get seed. So we're really rolling on what we have. And luckily enough, I did find, you know, a few old seeds that were knocking around the house, including some that I saved from a farm that I was working on locally, which is some nice Italian flatleaf parsley. So growing in modules is the easiest way to kind of just get things, grow them on. And then these little modules this size, you can plant out, you know, as little plug plants. I tend to grow them on at this time of year, just because it's, you know, you're getting it to a bigger state of maturity, and it's gonna stand a better chance against slugs and snails. Now, these seeds I harvested, these little Italian parsleys, I harvested them in 2015, so they're really quite old. So usually I'd say like 2 of these in the module. Because they are older, I'm going to say about 5 or 6. Not really thinking too much about the amount. I'm just going to chuck some seeds in there, because you can always plant a few more, or you can pull a few of the smaller ones out and leave the big ones in there. Again, we're going to top up, like we have our kales here as well, and some more lettuces. I had a couple of things that, you know, are growing but didn't do like amazingly. So, you know, I had some basil that didn't do great. So I'm just going to, you know, it might come on, but just to be safe. And with herbs, they always say kind of sow every 2 to 3 weeks. I personally think that's too much, but I'm just going to do a little row of basil as well, because basil's just great. You know, it feels really summery. Again, I'm not thinking too much about it. Maybe this is new seed, so I'm probably going to go at 2 in each one. Got some spring onions here, same thing, just going to do another little row, you know. And spring onions, because this is again new seed, I've got some mature ones somewhere, or they're getting there. They're not quite ready to plant out. You can see they're kind of that size, they're little scraggy spring onions. But I'm going to do another row, just so we've got that constant supply through the summer. It's a variety with red stems. So probably I'd go about 6 in each one, because not every seed will germinate either, even with brand new seed. You know, you're always going to get some that don't quite make it. So just about 5 in there. You can always sow just a few too many. If it looks a bit crowded in there, you can pull a few little plants out, and it's, you know, it's not really a big deal. Seed's pretty cheap. I'll just cover all these over with a little bit more soil, put them somewhere out of the way, keep them damp but not really wet, because seed can be prone to mold. And that's that. So you're on this idea of maintenance, that you're always going to have this supply of greens, and it's just much better than the supermarket. It always will be. You can harvest it the size you want. You can have it, you know, if you want them really big leaves for frying, if you want just baby leaves for kind of salads or for like really lightly, greens or for green smoothies, which is mainly what I'm growing a lot of this stuff for, is so I can have that constant supply of greens for green smoothies. But really, that's it. That's what we got today. And I'll hand you back over to Charlie, and obviously I'll field any more questions in the comments as we finish up. Good. You good, Charlie?
Yeah, man. I think the latency issue is maybe not quite as bad as it was last time. So should we try a couple of questions?
Oh, really? Yeah, sure. Hit me up.
Okay, so let's have a quick look here. I mean, I've certainly got one. Sophie asked, when you were with your lettuce leaves, she's saying, so you just leave the crappy outside leaves on there for the slugs to munch? Would you have sacrificial leaves?
No, that is one way of doing it, but slugs will always go for damaged matter first rather than healthy matter. But the idea is that you might pull the outer leaves off and throw them in the bin if they're too holy. Depends how you feel about that, if you want to eat holy leaves or not. Most people are cool with it because it's organic. But it's the idea that you're going to have this stem coming up that's going to be just further and further away from the soil.
Got you. And then, that is going to be, you're just going to be picking this crown of continual new growth. Yeah. Got you. And then I bought a basil plant from Sainsbury's recently. Sorry, from Asda, I think it was. And would you use the same technique with basil? Is there a good way to trim basil and use it and let it regrow, or with any of them actually? Because there's so many herbs you can buy now that are already sort of pre-grown.
Basil, you can do, yeah. Basil, you would actually do the opposite. What you would do is you'd pinch out the top growth and let it kind of bush out and get thicker.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
You pinch out the newest growth and let it kind of side shoot.
Got you. And Richard Hobbs has got a question here. He says he's a builder. He's building an allotment. And it's based around sort of old vehicle tires, and he's wondering, are they safe, or do they leach any sort of badness into the soil? And that's applicable for both veg and for fruit. It seems like he's growing fruit and veg.
Loads of people use old tires, so I can imagine no. Overall, people use them especially for potatoes and fruit trees. So I don't think the fact they're leaching into the ground, I don't think that's a massive deal, because people have been doing it for decades.
Amazing. Well, as always, these shows are sort of watched through the day. They're not always watched live. So what we always try and do is sort of come back to the questions from the previous video. So please do make sure you get your questions in for next week's show. Rossi, thanks so much, mate. Really appreciate today's show.
No worries.
I've learned a lot.
Fantastic. Great stuff. I'll see you guys next week. All right, take care.
Cheers, man. Wow, thank you so much, Rossi. I'm not a Mr. Greenfingers, but it's been I've really enjoyed watching. I've actually really learned a lot as a result of this platform. The Virtual Pub platform has been running for sort of 3 weeks now, just over 3 weeks, and just every event is a new learning curve for me. So it's amazing. Thanks so much to Rossi. Thanks so much for tuning in. You can tune into any of our videos. We have a whole archive of them on our Facebook profile page, The Virtual Pub. Just hit down onto the video section, and we got loads of videos. So horticultural, we got yoga classes, we have sort of high intensity workouts, and then in the evenings we have music and just general chit chats. Sundays are dedicated to mental health. We have big mental health chats, and we have some good music in on that. And we try and get some professionals and some charities to come in. We had Kate Louise in from Reform Charity a couple of weeks ago. We've had Gary Waters, who was an incredible sort of wellness lifestyle coach. We had a great chat with him. And week just gone, we had a good chat with the guys down at WeSup in Torquay. That was a great show. Talking about sort of business pressures of sort of working together as a companionship, because it's two business partners, and there's some good content there. So please do use the archive of video as well, and they're all there for you guys forever, hopefully. But thanks so much for tuning into the Virtual Pub. We're back tonight at 8 p.m. With an act. Actually, let me just double check who have we got in tonight. This is obviously the time that my computer breaks down. Here we go. Events. Yesterday we had Sarah in with yoga, and I caught the last 15 minutes. She does like a 45-minute class to an hour. It was incredible. So if you're new to yoga, it's a great class. I'm certainly going to be indulging in it either today or tomorrow. Monday we had tonight is where's it gone? I'm gonna have to put it in the comment section for you. I'll find it and I'll put it on. Guys, thanks so much. Amy Hawthorne, thank you so much for your question. We'll get Joey to answer that next week for you. Much love. Oh, there we go. Jerry Blunt's come in. Record Street is on tonight. Thank you. Couldn't see the event in the events page, so that was a bit of an error. But thank you so much for tuning in. Check us out tonight, 8 p.m. start. We'll have a bit of a natter and we'll go straight into some live music. Take it easy. Have a great day. Bye.